Hello and welcome to this episode of Standard Deviation, my column and video series. Today I'm going to be talking about why Budget 2025 needs to urgently revise how the government thinks about the middle class. Frankly, with costs and inflation the way they are, even those earning up to rupees 1 crore aren't exactly rich, and the tax rates must reflect this. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman's next budget, just weeks away, must move away from the politically attractive notion of focusing only on the poor. The government must instead prioritize two things: revising what it considers to be the middle class and targeting tax incentives for this group. Currently, the accepted definitions of the middle class exclude the real prime movers of economic growth. In short, there's a significant proportion of the population that is earning more than the current definitions of the middle class, but is hardly rich by any real sense once the expenses of life are factored in. This is the bracket, earning up to rupees 1 crore a year, that needs a shot in the arm, both for the economy as well as the mood of the nation. The government needs to think long and hard about what it considers to be the middle class. Political economist Milan Vaishnav, in a 2017 paper, provided a handy table capturing the various estimates that existed at the time. Existing literature seems to define the Indian middle class as comprising individuals whose incomes range from about $3,650 a year, which at current exchange rates would be about rupees 3.1 lakh a year, to rupees 10 lakh a year at the upper limit. This is a ridiculously outdated estimate, especially when it comes to the upper limit. Under the old tax regime, which is still in force today, an income of more than rupees 10 lakh attracts the highest tax slab of 30%. The new regime raised this limit to rupees 15 lakh, which is hardly an improvement. Basically, according to the tax department, you are positively rich if you earn this amount. This is the notion that needs to change. Consider the following statistics from the income tax department. Those reporting an income of between rupees 10 lakhs and rupees 1 crore a year made up just 3.7% of all income tax filers in 2011-12. This proportion jumped to 16.2% by 22-23. That's a more than four-fold jump. This 16.2% of the tax filers accounted for 1/3 of all taxes paid by individuals in 2022-23. Of course, some of this has to do with improved compliance, but that improved compliance should broadly have applied to all other income groups as well. What has happened is that the number of people earning in this bracket of rupees 10 lakh to rupees 1 crore a year has also grown. And remember, this is just the income tax filers. The number of people earning in the bracket but not filing taxes is still, unfortunately, far higher. The second step in revising the concept of the middle class is to look at expenditure. The middle class is that group of people that has money left over once all your overheads and savings are accounted for conspicuous consumption that can drive the economy. The Household Consumption Expenditure Survey for 2023-24 shows that the average urban household spends about 40% of its total monthly expenses just on food. Another 6% is directed towards education and healthcare each. Conveyance takes up about 8.5%, rent 6.6%, and fuel 5.5%. So that's about 65% of expenditure on just normal overheads. This, of course, is the average. The pervasiveness of education inflation, as richly shown by ThePrint's Fariha Iftikhar in her two-part series, means the real cost of education is probably not being captured in official statistics. The same is likely true for healthcare. But let's go with the 65% official figure for now. About 30% more goes into spending that's not exactly regular, but is nevertheless essential, such as clothing, bedding, footwear, and repairs for the house, and things like that. For the bracket earning between rupees 10 to 15 lakh and rupees 1 crore a year, all of these expenses come on top of a 30% income tax, not counting the surcharges. It's no surprise that the Economic Survey 2024 made a point to highlight that household financial savings are falling. What also does this level of taxation leave for conspicuous consumption? Eating out, watching movies, buying consumer goods, traveling, and general consumption expenditure all have to come from a minuscule part of people's incomes, if it happens at all. Now, let's look at the way tax incentives have so far been structured. Almost all of them in the recent past have been aimed at those earning less than rupees 7 to 10 lakhs a year. This is good and would have helped those people. But the overall economic stimulus from this is marginal. Incomes in this bracket are just not high enough for the tax cuts to have a meaningful impact on consumption expenditure. Put another way, tax breaks for those at the bottom of the pyramid are more like welfare, whereas what we also need is an economic stimulus. Now, imagine all those earning up to rupees 1 crore had to only pay 20% income tax, down from the 30 to 40% they have to pay now. The fillip to the economy would be immense. People like to have a good time, and when they can afford it, they do. But what about the revenue implications? I had argued in a previous column that the government can't afford to cut income tax rates because both corporate tax and GST have not lived up to their expectations. Now, I haven't done the maths on what will happen if the tax rate for the rupees 10 lakh to 1 crore bracket is cut to 20%, but I believe it will be compensated by an increase in GST collections due to higher consumption and a rise in the number of people in this bracket because such consumption propels growth and boosts overall incomes. It might take a few years for this to happen, but it will happen. The tax officials will, of course, have a better understanding of what the revenue implications will be. But let them at least start thinking about this expanded definition of the middle class and free themselves from an outdated rupees 10 lakh a year limit. More importantly, what it will do is change the mood of the economy. There's a general and pervasive despondency that has set in, fueled in large part by a vocal middle class complaining about just how much they pay in tax and how little they get in return in terms of services provided by the government. Give these people a break. Let their loud voices be raised in the government's favor. Let them spend and watch as the mood of the nation changes and growth comes galloping back. But on that note, that's all from me. Thank you so much for watching.